I'm Serenity and welcome back to my kitchen and welcome to another cake decorating video. Today, we are making this Mexico-inspired vintage style heart cake in the flag colors that says Te Amo Mexico on. This cake is inspired by my heritage. I'm going to teach you every single step. It is an horchata cake with strawberry compote and just regular Russian buttercream icing, vanilla. So I'm going to teach you exactly how to make every single thing on this cake. Let's get into it. So we're going to start with our cake mix, cake batter basically. So I'm going to be using classic white box mix for this because I have a crazy idea that I don't know if it's going to work. Because this is a Mexican themed cake and box mix, you can play around with it a little more with your crazy ideas. I really love Duncan Hines, the brand, not sponsor, because they give you so many suggestions on here. So this, I think, is already naturally vegan. Yeah, it just has soy and wheat. And then on the side, they tell you cool swaps that you can do. So like instead of oil, you can use Greek yogurt, refined coconut oil, or applesauce. Instead of water, you can use non-dairy milk, but love that so much. So we're gonna follow, it says half a cup of oil. That's what we're gonna do. And then it says 3 eggs, but my hack always is to add an extra egg for creaminess. I know eggs are expensive. And this is where we're gonna a little crazy. So this is whole milk, okay? 1 cup, it's replacing the water. I had this idea. I want this cake to be horchata flavor. So these little packets, I'm sure you've seen them. They come in pretty much every major agua fresca. This one says to put in 33 ounces of water. I'm using milk. I've already tested this out in a cup of milk. I used half a packet. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna add to our milk the horchata flavor and packet to make horchata. That way our white cake hopefully will taste like horchata. And then I'm just gonna give this a little whisk. It smells phenomenal. Okay, and put this into our cake mix. Now I'm gonna whisk this together till it is nice and smooth. And I'm like, you probably think, why are you making a Mexican flag? I'm half Mexican. And although with the current political climate, although those of us who actually read Project 2025 knew it was coming, I also grew up in a border city, which immigrants have never been an issue. And all art is political. And I was thinking, maybe there's some sort of way I can make a cake for a statement. It's good. It just needs more. So I'm going to add another half a packet. So in total, it'd be like 1 full packet. But anyways, I knew there had to be some sort of way I can voice my opinion, and all art is political. Even cake art, if you don't think this is true art, I'm just doing the whole thing. I'm also going to do some cinnamon sugar. So that is why I'm making a Mexican flag themed heart cake. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, it is super good. Now I know what you're thinking. Where does it go from here? Your crazy ideas have to stop here. That's a lie. I thought we're going to make the inside look like a Mexico flag, minus the bird on it with the snake. I'm not that talented. So we're just going to do the colors, like each color of the flag. So before making our batter, measured my bowl in grams. Now I'm going to measure it again. Okay. It is about 100 grams more than when I measured it originally. So I'm going to divide this. The batter is about 100 grams. I'm going to divide it into 33 grams each because we're going to dye our cake batter. So I'm going to zero out the bowl and then split this evenly. Okay. A little. Okay. And then our next color. So I'm going to dye, obviously, I'm going to leave 1 white and then the other 2, one I'm going to dye red and one I'm going to dye green. This is my favorite food coloring brand. It is a Hispanic Mexican brand, very affordable, and the colors are so good. Just gonna whisk this together. You see how easy it was to achieve that red color? It took no effort. And then I'm going to do the same with whisk it together. Again, that took no effort at all. Okay, so I have greased my 6-inch heart pans. I'm using 3 layers, obviously, because we have 3 colors, but that is my standard 3 layers. And then inside, I have placed a piece of parchment that I cut to the size of a pan. Then we're just going to pour our batter into their pans. Now we have our 3 colors of the Mexico flag. I'm going to bake these in the oven for about 18 minutes. Now, what we are going to work on is our strawberry compote. Obviously, our cake is horchata flavored, so we are going to make a strawberry filling. Strawberries are not necessarily grown in Mexico, but strawberry horchata, very big, or one of my favorites, frescas con crema, a Mexican dessert. Strawberries and cream is one of my favorites. So we're going to be doing a strawberry filling. The reason for it, though, is that I took a class called Borderlands and the Diaspora of Latinidad, and just learning obviously I knew the Mexican experience to a certain extent, but also hearing everyone else's, Puerto Rico, Haitians, and always being victimized by big countries, I wanted a filling in this cake, but I couldn't figure it out until I I really thought about it. And I'm going to do a strawberry filling to represent the blood people have shed for this country, all immigrants. But just in this case today, we're going to be doing Mexican immigrants. A compote is super simple to make. So we're going to go to the stove. This is super simple to do. I have about 3 cups of clean and chopped strawberries that I am going to add to a saucepan. Half a cup of white sugar and half an orange. Usually you would use lemon, lime. I only have an orange in my fridge. I'm just gonna give this a good mix around till the sugar coats everything, and then it's just gonna cook down. It's that simple. Also, if you don't want to use the stove, you can make what is called macerated berries. It's very similar minus the citrus, just strawberries and sugar. Mix it around, put it in the fridge, let it do its thing, and the berry juices will come out. I just wanted more of a compote sauce for this. So they cooked down. Our strawberries are gonna cook down for a bit until they are nice and like soupy. They'll thicken up as they cool, and they have reached that consistency I wanted. It took about 12 minutes. So I'm gonna bring them over here, and I'm just gonna put them into a Tupperware container, nice and hot. Cover them with a lid and then refrigerate them overnight because we're gonna be decorating this cake tomorrow. So our cakes have cooled out of the oven. Well, they're still kind of warm, but they're as cool as they're gonna get. And now we're gonna roll them into some saran wrap because they're gonna go in the freezer. I work with frozen cakes. It's a lot easier. The crumb stays intact, and I find that it actually enhances the flavor of the cake. And since we greased our cake, it should pop right out like that. We'll peel back our layer. It smells like horchata. Now I'm gonna do something different. I usually do not level my cake layers, but I want these to be very even sections. So I'm gonna do that. And then we'll just wrap it up. I mean, you can see the layers don't really have that much of a dough on them. So we're just kind of taking it off slightly. But because we are making like a flag, I do want these to be flat. I've cut into cakes before, and you can see that I left the dough on them. So that's why we're flattening them out. And you can see when we cut into them, that bright color from our Mexican food coloring. Honestly, it's the best brand I've used. And I will link everything I'm using for this cake down below for you to shop from. And we will just try this one to see what it tastes like. Yeah, we got that horchata flavor. I am gonna keep my cake scraps. Never throw these away. These are great on ice cream or with leftover buttercream. They're really good as a little like sweet treat. And you work so hard on your cake, so don't throw away your hard work. Okay, so our cake layers are gonna go into the freezer. You're gonna wanna lay them flat on something, so that could be some cardboard box in there. You probably have some frozen like food in there. While our cakes are cooling in the freezer, it's time to start our buttercream. So I'm gonna take 2 pounds, 8 sticks of butter, unsalted. This is my doubled buttercream recipe. I have a whole video on it. I will link below, going in depth, but I'm making a double batch because this is a vintage style cake, which requires a lot of piping. I have melted this butter down straight from the fridge till it is super soft. And now I'm gonna beat it on my mixer with the paddle attachment for 10 minutes until it is light and fluffy at about 4 to 6. It's been over 10 minutes. Our butter's now doubled in size. So now we're gonna add 2 cans of sweetened condensed milk. This is Russian buttercream, my personal favorite. I don't like American, it's too sweet. I'm also gonna add about 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract and a hefty pinch of salt. And we're just gonna mix this till it is well incorporated, and make sure to scrape the bottom of the bowl to make sure that condensed milk doesn't get stuck. Now, you shouldn't be surprised at this point, obviously. We're gonna be dyeing this red, white, and green. We're gonna split this kind of evenly between the 3 bowls. I'm gonna be making more green because the green is the base of the cake. We're gonna be switching to my little handheld electric whisk thing. Obviously our white is done, so we'll move her to here out of the way. I think we're gonna start with our green. Be careful. Don't do what I just did and get that everywhere. Now my fingers are dyed green. That is not the look we were going for. Anyways, we're just gonna blend that. Add some more. So this isn't as dark as we're gonna want it, but it will develop as it sits overnight because we'll be decorating the cake tomorrow. And before I decorate it, I will melt the buttercream down a little bit more so it's not this consistency. It's a little smoother than this. We'll move that one out of the way and get to making our red. Ours is getting so dirty. Red is one of the hardest colors to make a buttercream along with black. So I don't have an immersion blender, but again, with the melting method, the red should really come through. So again, the red isn't as vibrant as we're gonna want it, but when it melts down, it'll be fine. So now we have our 3 colors, and I'm just gonna put some saran wrap on top of them. I'll leave them in their bowls instead of putting them in little plastic Ziplocs because I'm gonna melt them in these bowls anyways. Our colors are done. They're gonna go in the fridge, and I'll be back tomorrow to decorate our cake with you. As always, we're gonna start by stacking and crumb coating our cake, and since this is resembling the flag in the background, we're gonna start start with our red layer first. I'm doing a thin coat of buttercream on the base and then creating a wall around it. That way my filling doesn't seep out of the sides. I'm going to close the seam immediately to make sure our strawberry filling stays inside. Then add our white layer on top of it and repeat this process, creating a little layer so the juices of the strawberry doesn't soak into the cake too much. That wall on the side, and then sealing that wall when I add my next layer, which is going to be the green. So I'm crumb coating in white here to make sure everything is nice and smooth, and the cake was leaning just a little bit, and this is the time where you're going to want to perfect that. It's because of the filling. So I'm making sure that it is as smooth as we can get. This is just a crumb coat. It's just to lock in everything. I'm going to set that into the freezer to harden and then scrape off the top edge and the bottom edge to get the white off. Next, I'm going to pipe on my green color here using a piping bag and then spread this out. So I'm actually doing this kind of thinly because there's going to be so much piping on top and our crumb coat is nice and solid. So this layer does not need to be super thick. I'm smoothing this out with a very long offset spatula, and then I'm going to go in with a hot bench scraper to scrape around. I just put this in the fire on the stove and then take it out and scrape around the edges. When I peel off some of the frosting to where you can see the white, I'm just going to put a little more using my spatula on top. Finally, I'm going to go in with my favorite bench scraper that is nice and hot and continue to smooth this as smooth as I can. It's not perfect, and at this point I was kind of giving up because it'd been 20 minutes of me doing this, and most of the time the piping you're going to do is going to cover this up anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Mainly you want to focus on the top and bottom. The middle portion is going to be covered by the vintage piping. Finally, I'm going to scrape the top to make sure that's nice and smooth, and then the base of the heart, I'm going to make sure that is nice and sharp because obviously we need the heart shape. Setting that into the freezer, and once it's set, I'm going to pull it out, and then my favorite thing to use is a circle cookie cutter I cut in half to create where the swoops are going to go, and it's time to start our piping. So on the bottom ruffles, I'm using a 70 Wilson tip to create these back and forth ruffles, and you just pull and go back on top of each other. Then on top of that, I'm going to go in with my red shell tip. This is the shell tip I use for all my heart cakes, and doing a simple border all the way across on the top and bottom. Finally, it is time to start our swoops. I'm using a 150 ruffle tip, and I'm just literally going up and down around the swoops all the way around. It's a very simple technique, but it looks very elegant and like Mexican draping in altars, if you know what I mean, especially for Dia de los Muertos. On top of that, I'm going to go in with my favorite 21 shell tip that I use on all my cakes in red. Then we're going to go in with some more green. I had ran out of white frosting at this point, so that's why there's very minimal white frosting on here. I'm going to use the smallest shell tip I have, create another border on top on the inner ledge, and then I'm going to do a back and forth rose border on the bottom. And finally, I'm going to go in with a small dot tip and go all the way around on the swoops. And that is all the piping we're going to do. It's time to add some silver glitter all the way around that is edible. And since I had ran out of white, I was trying to figure out how can I add white to this cake without having to make more buttercream. And I came to the conclusion to actually use sprinkles. So connecting each of the swoops, I did a dollop in that 21 tip red frosting. And I knew I was going to connect them with a little white pearl sprinkle, but I thought, okay, I can go even further, and between each point of where the shells connect on the red border, I'm gonna put a little white sprinkle, and that wasn't enough. So in the little back and forth rose border right above that on the bottom, I put a tiny little pearl sprinkle in between where the center of each rose was. And finally on the red swoops where each point connected, each shell, I did the same really small sprinkle all the way around to add some glam and the white color. And finally, on the top border of the inside of the cake, I put a little white sprinkle all the way around. That way we can add as much white as possible to this cake. And that is literally all of it. And putting the sprinkles on took longer than the piping. Of course it did, because I'm using food tweezers. Finally, it was time to put the words on top, which is Te Amo Mexico. I cut these out with my Cricut, and I did a gradient of the Mexico flag colors. I didn't move the camera. I forgot to do that, so you could actually see what I'm doing. But I cut this out with my Cricut on some photocopy paper. And here is the final cake and our final spin. Oh, she's so pretty. Don't you just love her? And finally, we have to cut into her to see all those layers. So I cut the tip of the heart off and it wasn't enough. So I cut a little bit more. I'm cut maybe at most like 3/4 of an inch. And it tried the cake, and the layers are gorgeous, and the cake is so yummy. It tastes exactly like horchata, and I love that you can see the cinnamon in it and the red strawberries dripping down. And that is our cake completed. I think she came out so cute, but I will say I did not make enough white. That was my fault because I overestimated how much red and green I was going to need, even though I knew I was going to crumb coat in white. So that's why originally I wanted the red on top to be white and then the white ruffles to be red, and I ran out. So that's why I didn't have any extra butter in my fridge to make more buttercream last minute. So I was trying to think, what can I use that's white in my baking cabinet? So I stumbled upon the pearls, and I think it did its job. My brother said it looks like Christmas, so thank him for that. And it might look like Christmas. It also looks like a Nacho Libre, the Mexican wrestlers. I can't think of the name. That's what it looks like to me. But don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I have a lot of baking videos on the lineup this summer. All my social media is linked down below if you want to follow me. And as always, the doggo picture day is going to be this picture of Karma because she is standing right here. Literally standing. She loves cake. I'm also going to be leaving some resources down below to donate to mutual aid funds for the migrants. As someone from a border city, migrants have never been an issue. They never will be an issue. So donate if you can. And remember, immigrants were never the problem. Love you, minute kisses. Don't do anything stupid. I'll see you next time. Bye.